I felt like I'm fading. I felt like I was just like becoming invisible. And I had people tell me that before. They said, well, there's a time where you just kind of just become invisible. I don't want to become invisible. But in Back to the Future, Marty McFly is at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and he's waiting for his parents to kiss out there, but he's looking at the Polaroid that he was in, and he was fading in there. And I felt exactly like that. I was like, man, I'm fading away, but I'm still here. Mine was the be the angel thing, and just try to, what can I contribute? If I can light somebody up in a positive way, then it's like it's doing something to me too. And I'm like, oh yeah.
I'm Art Blanchford, and this is Life in Transition. Welcome back to the Life in Transition podcast. I'm very excited today to have with us Nick Shelton. Nick launched with the Air Force, and then he had a very successful career in the oil and gas industry, where he retired at 49, thinking he had won. He'd won the race, only to later hit the wall. And after navigating this very difficult transition himself, he created a system to help others figure out what's next and find purpose again, no matter how lost they're feeling at the time. So, Nick, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast, Life in Transition, and to hear about this journey that you've been through and what you're finding and helping others along the way. That's exactly the purpose of this podcast. So very much welcome to the Life in Transition podcast.
Thank you very much, Art, for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So jumping in, is that the transition that you would like to talk about? What is the transition in your life that's been the most meaningful, the most impactful, the most learning that you've experienced in your life, Nick?
Yes, I would say it was this most recent, for the early retirement and trying to navigate life after that, because, you know, we're all kind of sold a certain narrative on how that's supposed to be. You retire and then you're just, I guess, going on cruises and playing golf or something like that. But it's a completely different world than what we're led to believe. So
take us through that. You're 49 years old. You had a really successful career in the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
Why did you decide to retire at 49? What was the decision mechanism? What was the process like for you?
Well, I was just looking at the horizon and I was like, well, I think I won, you know, because there's a lot of people that stayed too long that
Yes.
I know that were like, I should have retired earlier than this. And so many people were saying that, and they're waiting until, 65 or, 59 and a half and things like that. I said, well, I can just do this now. Plus, so that's one factor. And then also I have a brother and we're very competitive. And I said, and he's older than me. He's 2 years older. And he was like, I'm going to retire soon. I said, well, I got to retire earlier than him because, we're always competing. And so
that's another way you could win, is to
Yes.
retire early than your brother, beat
Yes.
your brother into retirement.
Yeah. So my parents both retired early too.
Okay.
They get 55 and 54. And so I said, well, I have to also try to beat them. So yeah, I did.
So
I won.
obviously it's a family thing, and it's definitely a culture thing, especially here in America.
Yes.
But what did it particularly in you what was the conversation, Nick, that you were having in your head that made you think that retirement was the end goal? Like that was the panacea. That was what was going to make you happy and fulfilled and what you had been working all your life for. What was that conversation like?
Well, since we always hear about that, it's like, wow, I will stop, working for the man, and I will just be able to do whatever I want, like endless summer. Like when you're a kid and you say, man, if summer could just be forever. And so I was like, I can do that. I can
Right.
have the forever summer and I can just do whatever I want. And so, all those images in my mind on, Mexico. So we did move down to Mexico. I moved to Mexico right after retiring. I was like, oh, I'll be in Mexico. But then after, 3 or 4 months in Mexico, you're like, okay, all right, well, I'm sitting here and I can do anything I want. and now I'm back in the States. And so
that's the dream that we think about. Okay, we can endless summer. I love the way you say that. Or vacation. Most people, hey, I can be on vacation for the rest of my life, right?
Yes.
there's a great, and I'll put this in the show notes because I don't remember his name right now, but there's a great TED talk from a doctor that's talking about retirement. And he said there's 3 phases to retirement. I wonder if this resonates with you, and we'll talk through this, Nick. But he said the first is vacation. Like you said, you move to Mexico, right?
Yes.
And you sit on the beach and you do the things, have a drink and go for a hike and all the things you think you want to do, go dancing, whatever. He said the first step is vacation. And that usually lasts from 3 to 12 months. And he said the second phase is depression. When you realize that this whole thing is a crock of shit. Like this whole promise that you can sit on the beach and have a drink and that's going to make you happy. Endless summer, that doesn't actually work.
Right.
It's really depressing because that's what we believed maybe for our whole life. Right. And then he said the third phase of retirement has 2 potential tracks. You can either go and die, which is what happens to a lot of people, or you can find a new purpose. You can find really maybe for the first time in your life where you can really do anything that you like, but let's say with a capital Y and a capital L.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
That you get to know yourself enough to understand what it is you really like. Most people have no idea.
Right.
And what it is, who you are. What are you really about? What is the capital U? What's the seed of you that really, realizes there's something deeper to want than sitting on the beach having, not that there's anything wrong with that, but sitting on the beach having a drink all the time is not going to do it. Right. So how does that line up with your experience?
It very much resonates, but that's a huge jump. And people just figure, I'll just automatically flip that switch. But no, there's a process because no one's ever trained to make that transition like that.
Yeah, that's right. That's what this podcast is about. Chip Connolly started this Modern Elder Academy, which I've been to, which has some training he calls for middle-essence instead of adolescence. We have a lot of training for adolescents. But coming back to your experience, Nick, so you had this, I'll just call it, you were immersed in the culture and also in the family culture, the general American ethos, and then your family specifically, that retirement is arriving. Right? And that's the goal, is to get to retirement.
Yes.
If we go back to that a little bit, if you looked at your parents when they had early retirement, how did that work for them? What was their process? What did you learn from observing, the people that we probably learn the most from in our life, which is our parents, whether we like it or not?
I love that question. That's really good. So that was also like a 2 thing. So my mother was like, it was a high achiever. Well, both my parents were high achievers, but my mother has to be in the mix all the time. So I think she maybe sat still for a month and then she's like, I have to go out and do something. So she got, a couple of part-time things to try to socialize. She needs to be on the social scene. So she really jumped into, other activities right away. And my dad said, I'm just golfing and playing tennis. That's it. And then my mom would say, well, you have to do something else. He said, no, I don't have to do anything. And he's just been golfing, playing tennis, and watching The Price is Right. And that's it. And
that works for him.
It's been years and years. And that's worked. And it's been no issue, and yard work. It's like, I'm just going to be out in the yard. And that works for him. But, there's different personality types. So some people could just go sit on the beach in Mexico and just be like, this is all I'm doing. But there's other people that feel kind of like that drive. And I apparently am one of those that, all of that, the ability to retire early was from a drive.
Sure.
And then when it's not like I can just be like achieving, which, we've talked about earlier, which on phases, like, so there's phases of life where there's the achievement phase where, your whole identity is around achieving.
Right.
And then I think after you retire, then there's a different phase on like your relationships with, your family, your community, your legacy building, and sort of like the warrior out on the plains, and then the tribal elders or the wise men in the tent. And so you're if you're in the tent as the tribal elder and the wise man, you still got a battle in you. If they're like, we need you out on the battlefield, you're like, all right, yes, I still got it in me, and you can go out there and do it. But your whole identity is not around that anymore. It shifts to the tent. But once again, you have to actually recognize that and say, oh, I need to make this shift from constantly achieving. And sure, there's also some people that, like the sort of the Colonel Sanders thing and all that, where you're like, I'm going to really do some serious achieving now that I can do whatever I want. So, and that's okay too. But then there's also the more likely is the more relationship, more mentor sort of focused thing that we switch into. And that it was tough for me to go from a lot of something, because I was putting in a lot of hours and my whole identity was built around this. And then now it's just stopped. And then that's going, it's continuing to move on without me. And then I was just.
So let's dig into that for a minute, because this, I think, is a really important part. So what you said, I put a lot of energy in this. My whole identity was in this. So what does that mean to you? So like, obviously, if you're retired at 49, even just financially, you've probably worked pretty hard.
Yes.
But this thing, what does it mean to have your whole identity in this? Nick, what does that mean to you?
So like my daily routines and my whole social structure was kind of built around this. And then, I'm supposed to, in oil and gas, in my sector, I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of a big deal,
Right.
And, but outside of that, no, not a big, just some random guy. So as long as you're in that pocket, you know exactly what your expectations are, where you fit into the world. And that was the same with the Air Force too. In the military, I was like, I know exactly where I fit into this giant organization. And,
right. Yeah, you have your rank, you have your spot, you have your duties. Yeah. Everything is clear, and it's around this work that you're performing.
Right. And the same in oil and gas. I built all of this around this. So, I saw those people. I worked really long hours. So I would see people at work more than anyone else, more than my family, anybody else. I would see them. So we have these, relationships. I go in, and this is kind of what we talk about. And then also just everything. So even like venting, it's like your therapy. You're like, okay, at 9 a.m., I go into this room, and there's going to be a couple other guys there, and we sit down and we just vent about whatever happened, or, there's, whatever's going on with, spouses, girlfriends, kids, whatever. And we just kind of dump that out on the other people, and we get our little therapy, our little comedy. And, but then once again, that is taken away too. All of the little pieces that you kind of build throughout the years, it's just gone one day, and you are kind of floating and have to try to figure out, these new avenues for this. And a lot of times, and I know this happened also with my parents, and it happened with me, is, if we're not used to being, so like with my relationship at home, I was gone a lot. And then if I'm all of a sudden home a lot, and then that I'm trying to take some of my can do stuff and bring it to the house and be like, well, this should be done. We can do this. And they're like, hey, we have how we do things here.
Right.
You don't just show up and then
take over.
Decide, hey, this is what we're doing, because you have this extra energy now that you want to burn here. You need to point that outward and find something else, So, and that happened with my parents also. My dad was like, hey, I have some ideas. I'm going to start remodeling, but he doesn't know how to remodel anything. And he's got little books. And then my mom's like, he's messing up the house with this home improvement stuff. We need to get him out there on the golf course again, whatever. So it's just one of those things where you have to, reintroduce yourself to your family. Like, hey, I'm going to be around, and to yourself, because this is a whole new you. And I had to do this. It was this massive, I guess we could call it depression, but it was kind of like I was fading. I was lost. I didn't really no, without that, what I built around that identity with work, I was like, well, who am I now?
Mm-hmm.
And, so it took a while to figure that.
How long? So when was this transition? When did you retire at 49?
That was January 2024.
Okay. So you've been at it a year and a half, year and 3/4.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And then you started to ask this question you just said about who am I now?
Yeah.
Without this structure, without this content, without this construct, without this monument that I built to myself, maybe thinking it was me. Who am I now? What have you learned? Who are you now, Nick?
Great question. And so what I did, and part of what I help people do is I was thinking, because I tried like hypnotherapy and regular therapy and, looking at, doing some, go ahead.
And I was just saying, why did you try those things? Like, what was the feeling? What was coming up for you that you felt like you wanted to go and get hypnotherapy and get therapy? And
I said, oh, well, this will help me find the answers. It's like, I'm just
the answer to who am I now, or anchor point, or
an anchor point, find my new purpose. I was like, if I do that, somehow it'll just be like, here it is.
Right.
Here's your North Star.
Right.
But
Yeah.
It didn't happen like that. And I was looking at, all this motivational stuff. So then, I'm motivated, but I was like, what am I motivated for?
Right.
And so then I was like, well, I know a lot of times when people retire, they just drop dead. And I was like, well, I didn't though. So I still got another dance in me apparently. So, well, what am I going to do with this time? Who am I once again? And then I started thinking about how, I saw some video where somebody had said, well, maybe in another life I can do this. And I was like, well, that person's thinking, they have to die and then be reincarnated or something, do it. But I said, well, maybe I can just say, okay, that old life, I died to that one.
Right.
And now I'm going to start this new life. But different this time is the first one was kind of given to me. And then I said, well, maybe this new one that I can start on my own right now, I can create it. I can decide.
Right.
Kind of like either somebody that's writing a screenplay for a movie, or there's those role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. They create characters. And I said, what if I just create, well, who do I want to be?
Right.
If I can just choose, I can just create, like, what would this person, what kind of music do they listen to? This is different than the old Nick. This is the Nick 2.0. So what do I want to be? So how would this person interact with people? What are their hobbies? So I just said, I can just write all this down. I can take some stuff from like if I was writing a TV show or something and just create a character.
Right. You can be the director and producer and author, screenplay author of your life now.
Yes.
Instead of following somebody else's script.
Right. I can choose and I can build this other one. I can carry over the stuff that might help and be like, okay, I like these things from my old life and I'm going to bring those over. But then all this stuff I don't need, I can just leave that behind and I can be as if I did pass away. And now there's a guy, James Altucher, who's an author and speaker, had talked about this method that I liked about. He said, when he starts his day, he thinks of it as like being an alien that was just transported into this body for the day. And it's like, what am I working with? How do I navigate this guy's life for today? And so if I look at it like that, we're like, okay, the old Nick is gone. Now this new me is in here. I like, I'm only going to listen to classical music now because this Nick loves classical music and going to the symphony. The old Nick did too. But this one will focus more on that, keep it uplifting, and, I'll go on walks. The other Nick, did this, but we're doing this now. So I can create this whole new person that, and if for some reason it's not feeling the way that I thought it would feel, I can change it. I can play with this new me. So that's one thing that I did. I developed and I documented everything. So I said, well, other people have to be going through this. Let's see what works, what doesn't. And I'm the guinea pig on this.
Right.
And, see how, and where do I start to slip? Where does it fade? So that I know, okay, we need extra attention in this to bring it back into what I want to be now. And like I talked about earlier, that achievement-based thing, and then the relationship-based thing. It's like how much do I want to because I'm not like 100% relationship-based and 0% achievement. There's some achievements, and I'm like, oh, I'd still like to do that. But then there's some people that could use my help, so I have like 4 mentees at the moment that I'm just helping out with, dropping my knowledge, because I have little pockets of knowledge that are helpful for other people because of my experience. And so I'm like, here's a little something.
This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by Midlife Transition Mastery. If you have reached midlife and you are successful, you have checked all the boxes. You've done everything you thought you should do, and especially pleasing everybody else, doing what you think everyone else needs you to do. But you still feel like something's missing. Like you're coming up empty, feeling alone, feeling misguided or lost. Midlife Transition Mastery Explorer community is for you. Here we will build authentic community. We will learn about the 8 steps to mastering midlife transition. And we will learn and execute living life with no regrets in our second half. Please check out the community on lifeintransition.online/MLTM, Midlife Transition Mastery. And I look forward to seeing you around the fire in this community. So how are you feeling? So you said you left this structure your whole life in between Air Force and oil and gas, very structured, so yes. Let's call it for 20 years. Yeah. Or sorry, 30 years, from 19 to 49. Yeah. So for 30 years, everything is very structured. You know where you're supposed to show up. You're running a script that you probably didn't recognize at the time, but it's not 100% your script, right? You're running a script that was handed to you. A lot of it has to do with making money, right? We're new at this point in society where we're past survival with a lot of life left still.
Right. Yes.
Right. That's not something we've really had as a human race before the last 40, 50 years. Yes. Right. So this is it's a great problem to have, but instead of just trying to survive, which is what we've equated money to an achievement, now you get to a place where, okay, I have enough to eat. You have children, Nick?
I don't have any children.
Okay. But your financial obligations are taken care of enough so you can quit. And now you have hey, wow, what's my script, right? What is it that I'm really about? And what is that new Nick? Like, what would you say? Because I hear you talk about, achievement. And then there's the elder, the guy in the tent. Yes. The warrior on the plane, the person in the tent that's guiding the warrior on the plane. And there's been a lot written about these different phases of life. And but I'm curious about your process. So you dropped sort of your whole identity almost 2 years ago, and you went into this place of wondering who you are. And now what would you say? Like at this point do you feel like you have a handle on that? Who is Nick Shelton now? Yes. And not just about hobbies or not, but like, how would you describe yourself? And what keeps your heart beating right now? What pulls you out of bed in the morning right now?
Okay. Oh, also let me add, I do have step kids, because I know this is going to come up like, you said you didn't have any kids. Yes, I have step kids. They're wonderful. So they're around.
Yeah, okay. For sure. So you have kids. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what kind, whether they're mentees, adopted. I have 2 adopted kids, one biological kid, or whether they're step kids or whatever. It's
not looking for any trouble with the new body.
Yeah, no, okay. For sure.
Yeah. So, what gets me up in the morning now is, I have a renewed sense of purpose in, so there's this thing that I started doing where it was like, I call it, it might sound silly, but I just call it like, be the angel. One day I was thinking, like, do angels exist? And not like in a big religious sort of thing, but it's like, what is that? Do they exist? And I was like, and if they do, how do you know that you're not one? Something like that. And then I said, well, and no matter what type of day I'm having, I have the power I can make someone else's day. I can, it's like, what if I can do miracles, but I can't do them for myself or anybody that's close to me. I can only do them for strangers. And then so I was like, well, what if I just kind of went out into the world like that? And so when I get up in the morning, I'm like, I'm going to make somebody's day today, and then I'm like, how's that going to be? What am I going to do? And so I'm kind of excited to see how's this going to come about. I got to go out into society and then see, where's it going to be? Who am I going to help today? And then some people would say, well, I can't be buying people a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be buying somebody something. Sometimes somebody just wants someone to listen to them. So just being an ear, just to listen to somebody, or it could be one of those things where you pay for someone's gas at the gas station. You could do something like that. That's an option. A grocery thing, help someone with their groceries, help somebody move something heavy. I don't like moving stuff heavy, but I'm like, well, other people don't like it either. And so let's
do it together. Divide the load. Yeah.
You're right. So there's all kinds of ways. If you're looking for it, there's all kinds of ways that you will find that you can help somebody every day. And so that's one of the things that I get excited about, just to see, well, what's it going to be? I'm going to make somebody's day, but I don't know what it's going to be today.
So what's been one of your most fun experiences of that, Nick, where you've really been an angel for somebody else, made somebody else's day?
There's one thing that comes to mind, but it's not, it's really not.
It doesn't have to be
thing.
Significant. Yeah.
Well, this is kind of significant.
Okay.
There's one thing that popped into my mind, but then people are going to be like, well, that's kind of so I'll tell you that one, but then I'll bring it back to a normal level. There's one day that I was like, man, it'd be really cool to, be on a yacht, and so it's like, I'll charter a yacht. And then I was like, well, I have this yacht, but I can't just be me on the yacht. So then I, just called up a couple of friends, and then like you get like a random person too and be like, do you want to go? So I went to the mall and was like, do you want to go on a yacht? Because, I want to go on a yacht. So I'm sure other people want to go on a yacht.
Right.
So like, hey, you want to go on a yacht? And then people are like, yes. Everyone's yes, I'll go. And it's like, man, if I had one of these in high school, I would have been really popular, But so I had like a little yacht party, and, everybody, there's a guy that said, this is the best day of my life. And I was like, oh man, I got to be a part of someone's best day of their life. And it was just really fun just to share that experience. And, so that's kind of, I'm not saying that all your listeners need to go and charter a yacht or anything like that, but that's just one thing that when you said that, that popped into my mind, because I remember that the guy saying, this is the best day of my life. And I was like, oh, wow, I got to be a part of this. But there's so many smaller things that, you can do. Like there's this place called Cold Stone Creamery, which is an ice cream place. And I get these $10 gift cards, and then I would give them to people and say, have a cold one on me, and people love ice cream and they're not expecting it, and so it's like, bam, here you go. Here's some ice cream. And, I'm not affiliated with them in any way,
right,
but
right.
I'm like, what's something that, people like ice cream usually. And I think they have some lactose-free options for people that are like, well, my stomach. So go in there, check it out. They'll have some. So there's just all kinds of little things. So those kind of I've had some really good reactions from the ice cream thing, which is a pretty low bar, much lower than the yacht thing.
Right.
But I like, one of my favorite things is, and I don't want to get too off topic here, but I love doing the shared experiences, kind of like the yacht thing, but I did one with like caviar. And once again, it doesn't have to be these high level things, but I was like, do I like caviar? I don't know. So I'm going to get a bunch of caviar, and then I'm going to invite a bunch of people and be like, hey, does anybody want to try caviar? I have all the stuff here, and let's just, whoever, if you happen to be in my orbit that day, you'll be invited to, hey, come and try it with me. We'll all have this shared experience together. And I found out that I don't like it.
Right. Awesome.
But yeah, it doesn't have to be like that. These are just some things that popped into my mind, but there's a lot of just basic things, like just listening to someone at Chipotle. I will, there'll be a long line or something. When I get up to the front, I don't, they say, what can I get started for you? I say, well, hold on. How are you? How are you today? And I'll actually genuinely have a little conversation with them on how they are. Sure, the people behind me are like, what's this guy doing? Come on, let's go. But I actually see the people, because there was a time many years ago I worked at Subway, and people would treat you like you were like a robot or something back there. So I try to acknowledge each of the people, and I see them and acknowledge that I'm seeing them. And so these are just some little things. So this Nick Shelton, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, well, what can I do to help shine a little light,
right, to make somebody else's day,
right, make someone's day, and be helpful in some way with the tools that I have, with the knowledge that I've learned. So this is, again, on those relationship things. It's, what can I be a part of and learn about? I've talked before about just like these meetup groups where it's like, there's one with pilots. I'm not a pilot, but I went, and they're like, what do you fly? I'm like, I don't fly anything. I just wanted to meet some pilots just to see what's going on.
Right.
And so it's,
no,
don't want to get too far off the
listening
topic.
To you, Nick, I feel like, there's a couple things that you didn't talk about in the beginning, but they come out when you're talking, when you're really animated about and excited about, which is helping others and shared experience.
Yes.
Right. To have these authentic conversations, to really see somebody. I love that word about seeing people. You talked about seeing somebody in that's working at Chipotle, and not just, treating them like an object, but seeing them as a human being. So this is a journey that you're on now the last couple of years. And you obviously are discovering a lot of things about yourself, and then you put the system together. So what's the system that you put together to help others to find this journey as well, to go on this journey of finding who they are? Let's say if it's not some other script, right? If they have a chance to die to the first half of life and be born to the second half of life with a lot more choices, if they're lucky enough to be there. Right. What have you found? What have you synthesized?
Yes, excellent. So I call it the reset button, because when I was kind of at the lowest of the low after hitting that wall, I said, man, if I just need a reset button of some sort that I could hit, and then we can just, okay, now we're starting. I said, well, how would that go? And how I formed this was, so I had some experience on being introverted, shy, and socially awkward. I have a book out there that's called An Introvert's Guide to World Domination. And I
love that title. It's funny.
And so navigating all of this, the military and the oil and gas industry as an introverted, shy, and socially awkward person, and saying, how would I take this? And how do I navigate it? Because I would like these opportunities that I'm missing out on. How do I take this type of personality and make it work? And so I figured out how to do that, and then, documented it, and then coached others in that. So then with this, I said, okay, I'm in this slump again. How do I break out of that? And then what from before, like the a lot of the introvert, shy, and socially awkward things, some of that navigation also applies to this. Mm-hmm. I said, well, what can I use from that? So I developed, the reset button. I was like, okay, well, so I need some steps here. So I had to audit where I was, like what's working, what's not working, what's giving me energy, what's taking away energy, mm-hmm. What do I want to carry over, what needs to go away. So do an audit, and then it'd be, I would, honor the old me, honor that story, and then like let it go. So like, yes, mm-hmm. I recognize this. And so like if you're an Olympic athlete, you got your gold medal or whatever, and then you're like, okay, that I got it. There it is. Thank you. But now I'm past that. Let's move on. So like ceremonially mm-hmm. letting go of the old, cutting that cord. And
what's one of the methods that you recommend for doing that? If somebody has, just gone through a big transition, or, what's a way to honor the past and let it go?
So one of the things is to write a letter to you, acknowledging what it was and what you learned, and, forgiving yourself for the stuff that you didn't know, and then burning it. Mm-hmm. Burning it. Been like, okay, I'm sending it. I'm letting it go. I'm sending it away. You could also bury it, but I like the burning of it. Mm-hmm. Burn it. Write the letter. Burn the letter.
So write the letter, like acknowledging the good that you did and recognizing the mistakes and the shortcomings that you had, but all of it, but honoring that experience, appreciating what was good about it, learning from it what you can, and then actually letting it go in a burning bowl ceremony or something like that.
Yes. So it's kind of like a life review, mm-hmm. and you're acknowledging it, saying, yes, I did what I did, good and bad, but now, good job. That is over. Here it is, but now that's over, and now we're going to start something new. But yeah, it's a burning bowl ceremony, and then you release that, and then the next is defining who you want to become. So then that's that step where I was telling you about, like creating the new character. What from the old one, when you did that audit, you would take the stuff that you like, ooh, I'd like to, if I was saying reincarnated into this new
me, the second half of life,
the second half, what traits would I want to carry over, and then carry those over, and then build out, well, what's this new me? Ideally, if I could choose, what would I choose? So then you kind of write it all out, get that, your character sheet, all out. So then what you're aiming for. And then I say so then as you're trying to embody that, it's good to, and this is kind of part of that, what I would have the introvert, shy, and socially awkward people do, is you need to break out into some new environments, because mm-hmm. You had your old stomping grounds and your old environments, but let's test out. This is a new you, so let's test out some new you stuff. So, and this can vary per individual, but the defaults that I tell people is dance class, cooking class, language class, mm-hmm. and so. If you do these, and even if you don't, you don't have to be a good dancer. It's a dance class they're teaching.
Right, yeah.
And, and so it's just, what it does is it just kind of breaks you out, gets you out to try out. Because like if I just go out to wherever and I say, I used to be this guy. I used to be a petroleum chemist or whatever. Then people are like, okay, yeah, nice. But now I'm trying out this new me. So what am I now? And then I can go to this dance class, and people are going to talk to me naturally, and it's pretty intimate. So you're getting to know people, and then you can now you're this new person. So now you're introducing yourself as this new you to the dance class, cooking class, language class, and it's not necessarily, and people always think, you're just meeting those people in the class, but not really. You'll usually meet somebody, and you'll make a connection, and you'll end up meeting somebody that they know.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's how, and I tell people when you travel to a new country and you don't know anyone, do that same thing. Take dance class, cooking class, language class, and your network will expand dramatically from that. So doing this, you're stretching the legs of this new you, and you're building your connections off of this new you. So now all these people that you're meeting, you're not basing it off of the old you. This new
right. You're not talking about all your achievements in the oil and gas industry,
right,
and who you were then, and
right.
expecting to be significant and getting your significance and connection based on your achievements in your previous life, if you will.
Yes, exactly. So now people are seeing you, and you're building this network out based off of what you're doing now and what you're trying to do and what your goals and accomplishments. Plus you're learning stuff. You're like, oh, hey, I've learned that I either like cooking or don't like cooking.
Right. One way or another in the class, you're going to learn. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about the subject matter. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. Like you said, what you like and don't like.
Yes. And then, then also there's a thing where, a lot of times when we've been in this achievement mode, we sacrifice a lot. We sacrifice for our families or friends, sacrifice for that mission of the achievement. And so there's some stuff that maybe as a kid that you were into, or you had some hobbies that you just didn't have time for, or that you always wanted to do. Now's the time to kind of look into that and say, maybe this new me would like to. So like I used to write a bunch of poems when I was younger, and then I just stopped because I was like, I'm just doing other stuff. But maybe like, let's give it a shot and see, is that still in me? Is that still something that I want to do? So it's kind of also, you're going out and you're building these connections, but then you're also kind of remembering, well, what were some past passions that I kind of set to the side, and trying to see if those still have any spark to them. And then once you kind of gather all that together, then you like craft a new mission statement on like, this is what I'm about. This is what my new North Star is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to get that, get you settled into this new you. So it's kind of tough because, you say, okay, I developed this new me. Now I'm going to switch over. I met some new people that know me in this new light, but there's going to be something. And this is where like that I mostly am helping people with, because sure, you can, and you don't need my help, but this is very helpful to have the accountability, because the old you it's coming. It's like, come on back, come back. And it's really easy to slip. And so once you're trying to solidify that new you, there's little parts that kind of start seeping in. And so it's helpful to have somebody to be like, hey, remember,
right,
this is you now.
Patterns are very strong, for sure. Yes. Patterns are very strong. Absolutely. I'm curious about a couple things. You said you develop your new mission statement. So I've been asking myself, I'm listening here, what's the why? What's the motivation for all of this? Like, what's underneath it? What do I want by getting what I want? So for yourself, Nick, what's the new mission statement that you've come up with for you?
Oh, I like this. Mine was just mine was the be the angel thing. And
great.
Just try to like, what can I
so your like one liner is be the angel today, to make a miracle in somebody else's life today.
Yes. And once again, it's not even like in a religious sense. It's just like, well, what can I do?
I understand. Yeah.
If I can light somebody up in a positive way, then it's like it's doing something to me too.
Absolutely.
Like, oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And so for me, naturally, there's things, it's not just purely that, but you have to have like the main North Star. So that's my main North Star. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, well, what can I do to, bring how can I help other people win, mm-hmm. so to speak, mm-hmm. and in a more broad term as well. So sure, there's people out there that help you get rich. I'm not trying to help anyone get rich. I'm just trying to help people with that purpose, with that North Star, with that second mission to be like, oh, this is what I can do. These are some options that I have, and I can actually create this second life.
Right.
And so it's just, and naturally in the Be the Angel, it's not trying to hit the reset button on everybody. It's just like, hey, I can, for like this 30-second period, I can shine a little light on this person here. I can be of assistance. I can help out. And then also with the helping coach other people and consult other people on this transition, since this was such a hard transition, that it's like, man, there's gotta be other people going through this. And
absolutely.
Now that and similar to the Introvert's Guide to World Domination thing, I said, there's some people there's plenty of introverts that are like, I'm going to just be at the house and I don't care. I'm not going out. But then there's others that are like, I would like to go out. I would like to do some stuff, but I don't know how.
I don't know how to approach it. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I have something for them. And so for people that retire and they say, I'm not doing anything like my dad, then I'm like, okay, well, do your thing. But then there's other people that are like,
do your no thing, right? Yeah,
right.
Problem. Yeah.
But there's somebody out there that's like, well, what's next? How would I go about, finding this? Because I'm just treading water, trying to figure out what my thing is. And it was painful. It was very painful. And let me add this, that nobody noticed. Nobody knew that. So it's not like you think that.
So nobody knew the pain you were going through when you were lost and about like, what's next? I had this whole identity.
Yes.
Now I've given it up. I thought I had won. Everybody on the outside still thinks I have won, probably. Right. But I'm actually going through this intense feeling of being lost, of pain.
Yes. So just like you're saying, so you would think people would assume, were your friends and family, were they concerned about you? No. Everyone's like, he's got it made. He's fine. And so to the whole world, I was great. And they're like,
but what was it like inside of your heart, inside of your head? What was going on? What was the feelings you were having?
I felt like I'm fading. I felt like I was just like becoming invisible. Mm-hmm. And I had people tell me that before. They said, well, there's a time where you just kind of just become invisible. Like, I don't want to become invisible. Mm-hmm. And so, but it felt like, it's a deep cut, not timely reference, but in Back to the Future, Marty McFly is at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and he's waiting for his parents to kiss out there, but he's looking at the Polaroid that he was in, and he was fading in there. And I felt exactly like that. I was like, man, I'm fading away, but I'm still here. I'm still alive, but everybody has kind of written me off now. And I was like somebody.
So
and then
there's everybody and somebody. It's interesting because it probably is around your career. Everybody has written you off. It probably your wife and your stepkids and your friends and your brother and parents, they probably didn't write you off.
No, they didn't write me off, but it was kind of still that like, he's fine. Nobody was really.
Right.
So I wasn't getting.
You're not the center of anybody's life. You made your job. You made your career the center of your life.
Yes.
And now you don't have that. And shit.
Yes. It was
like, who am I now? And then I'm fading. I'm disappearing from this picture. I'm dying.
Right. I was dying.
Because this first half of your life, in a sense, is dying. Your career is dying. You chose to kill it. Right. You thought that was winning. Yes. But then you didn't realize that you had superimposed yourself onto this career. Right.
And I often say that it's like if you had a bunch of currency. So if you had, a bunch of with those Zimbabwe dollars or whatever, you're like, hey, I'm a billionaire. And then you're in Zimbabwe. Well, I guess it was even worthless there. But if you had like a bunch of currency somewhere and then that country
doesn't exist, or just quit using that currency or whatever,
and then you're like, well, I was kind of look at all this. Can I use this or something? And now it's like, no, we use this other thing now. And then so it's like, what am I supposed to do? Because all that I built and I spent a lot of time and effort building, that's not there. It's there, but it's not. I'm not with it
You're
anymore.
not there anymore, and,
Yeah,
and you're not defined by that.
Right. So it's quite a thing. And also, I think that people not noticing also kind of made it even worse, because I'm like, nobody notices that and then when I would say something about it, like, I feel the most alone that I've ever felt in my life. That's what I had said to the wife. Instead of being lonely, I said, I'm not lonely, but I feel the most alone I've ever felt. And then she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, Mexico? Was it Mexico? And I'm like, no, it's not Mexico. So she didn't understand. Nobody knew. So if I said that, people are like, what do you mean? You see people more than so I was like, around the family more than ever. But I was like, man, everybody's kind of doing their own thing because they had their routines, and I'm there too, but nobody's really seeing me.
Right.
It was something.
This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by Transition Mastery Coaching. If you have made it to midlife and you're successful and you are going through transitions in your life, in your business, in your career, or in your organization, and you are looking to master those transitions, to make the most of them, to accelerate into the next phase of your organization or your life, if you're facing, challenges in your business, challenges in your relationship, challenges in your health, and you really want to transition those quickly, I'm here to guide you for that. And I look forward to working with you. You can sign up for either Pinnacle Transition Coaching or Summit. Please go to lifeintransition.online/MLTM and scroll to see the Summit and Pinnacle Coaching, or reach out to me directly on my email, art@artblanchford.com. And I look forward to connecting with you and helping you to accelerate your transitions to achieve what it is that you want to achieve in the second half of your organization and in your life, so you can live your whole life with no regrets. Yeah, no, I can relate. I've been going through this exactly the last 6 months. So I can relate very much to what you're saying, Nick. And I think I wonder, there's the question coming up for me, like, what would you tell your 28-year-old self, your 35-year-old self, with the wisdom that you have now from realizing very painfully that you are not your job, which you thought you were, and everybody else got comfortable with you being your job as well. So then you try to show up as a human being again in their life, and they don't even see you. Right. And guess what? At your job, the day you're gone, nobody gives a shit, right? That business has got a business to do. And if you're not one of the cogs in the wheel, somebody else will be the next day, and it'll go forward.
Yes. Very quickly.
So what would you tell? Yes, very quickly. I had a boss tell me once, if you want to see how big a difference how big a hole you'll leave in the organization, pull your hand out of a bucket of water.
Yes.
All right. And not bad. It's just as a way of being humble, right? The organization actually doesn't need us. We think it does. And we put and unfortunately we make it our God, like, in a sense. We worship that identity, and that's why we put so much energy into it and think it's going to do all these things for us that we find out later maybe it doesn't do for us. So I'm curious, like, looking back now from the wisdom and the glimpses of the wisdom and the transitions that you've made in the last couple of years, what would you tell your 30-year-old self?
Well, it's tricky, because I don't think that I would necessarily want myself, like, I think I needed that. I think I needed to experience it. And then it brought me here where I can share about it. Yeah. And because if I skipped it, then.
And it's not necessarily to skip it, but would you say, hey, keep going, do exactly what you're doing. Right. And maybe that's what it is. Or would you say, have this awareness as you're going, have this awareness?
Yes, I would say that. But at the same time, there was part of me that had it from when I left the Air Force. Right. I had struggled, and I was like, okay, I need to make sure there are systems in place when I leave, because I struggled after the Air Force also, because I was like, I need structure. So I was like trying to recreate the structure in my own life, and I was like scrambling to try to make that happen. And so I said, okay, this is going to happen again. So felt that I was ready for it, but I wasn't. And so on my retirement at 49, I thought, okay, I've seen this before, but it's not going to happen to me. I'm ready. And I wasn't ready. I was, the vacation part, that was cool. But right after that, it was like, oh, just this big void that I stepped into. And, and I tried to vacation more. I was like, okay, let's vacation more. That'll do it. And then I was just like, what am I doing? So you were
applying the same method of working more that you had from earlier. Like, oh, let's vacation more. Let's work harder at vacation. Let's work harder at retirement.
And then it was so empty for me. Once again, for other people, maybe it never feels that way. But for me, I was like, no, I need to do something. I need that North Star, and let's figure this out. And so, yes, it did take that hitting that bottom in there, which I was like, oh, this place again. But there's got to be something, because once again, if everyone's looking at you like, oh, you won, you have it made, and everyone's like, oh, I hope to be like you one day, and you're like, this sucks. Yeah, this sucks. This is what people are aspiring to do, and I'm like, I don't think that you know what this is. But now I've got to a place where I'm like, okay, yes, let me. So I'm trying to help other people, and once again, I don't know if it's one of those things where I don't know if I can help anyone before the dip, or if you have to be in the dip to be like, because I try to think of myself personally, and actually, that's not true, because when I did the hypnotherapy and the therapy and stuff like that, that was before the dip, because I said, I need to try to get ahead of this. I didn't know how far the dip was going to be, but I said, I need to try to get oriented to that North Star as soon as possible. And then, so I did take steps. So I was like, I could look for some help, but it didn't do
prevent
it for
the dip,
me.
Right?
Yeah. And so then when the dip came, I was like, oh, now I really need some help. Now I need to do something. But then I said, okay, well, let's get some systems in place, and let's figure it out. Just like with the introvert, shy, socially awkward thing. I was like, well, I'd like to do this, but I got to actually go out and interact with people. How do I do that in a way that I actually would? So I'm trying to develop something where it's something that, with systems. So you actually just have steps, and you just do the steps, and something that you would do, because there's stuff that you could do and stuff that you would do, because just like with the introvert thing, where people just walk into the room and say hi to whoever, you're like, I'm not gonna do that, so it's like, well, what actually would you do? What's a step that you could walk into a room, let's do it, let's break it down so you actually can do this, versus just this big leap that no one's actually
that's not possible. Yeah, that sounds great on paper, but you can't actually do it, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you that. I mean, if somebody's in the middle of this transition, Nick, they're in the dip, right?
Yes.
Which we all want to gloss over. And I mean, I can tell you, since, for me, from April, I'll say April until the 1st of September, it was the toughest months I've had in my life. This year, like right now.
Yes.
Right. So if somebody's in that dip, and I don't know that there's any way around it. I don't know that there is. I just read this book, and I'm going out to Mexico next week. I just read this book, Tears of Things by Richard Rohr.
Okay.
Which I'm thinking, he said that part of his experience in there is that the only way to come to true compassion and humility is through the tears.
Yes.
Right. Like there's like a melting away that, you've heard a lot of people say in the past that the broken heart is the one that, where it breaks is where the light can come in. Right.
Yes.
Like somehow, like we maybe can't avoid that pain. we want to make sure that we don't get so painful that we check out, or so isolated
Right.
that we commit suicide or disappear, right? We keep breathing through it, and then we can be of service to others on the other side of that, which you talked a lot about indirectly listening to you
Right.
today about being of service. But I'm curious, if somebody's in that dark spot right now thinking, wow, I had this whole construct of life where I was going to achieve X and I was going to feel Y. I call it the false happiness dichotomy. If then statements. If I get this, then I'll be happy.
Right.
And now you're realizing that that's BS. Like, that didn't land, because here you
Yes.
are, you've won the game of life, at 2/3 of the way through. So you not only won it, but you're faster and better at it than everybody else.
Yes.
And yet you feel lost. You feel intense isolation. You feel sadness. You feel, tears coming up that you thought, like, it doesn't make any sense. And why is this? And I can't control it. What would you say to that person right now? What's the one tool that they can, you mentioned this minute, that they can do, not some Pollyanna thing, I'm going to be Tony Robbins tomorrow,
Right.
but what's one thing that you would recommend that they can hit pause on this podcast right now and that they can go do to take I would say it's a new phrase I've learned when I was hiking the AT a couple of weeks ago. What's the smallest step I can take that'll keep the momentum? That won't burn me out. I'm not going to try to step 3 feet at once. What's the smallest forward step that I can take? What would you recommend as that smallest forward step for somebody in that situation?
Ooh, love that question. So the first thing that came to mind was the auditing where you're at. But, naturally you're going to, in that scenario, you're going to see a lot of stuff that isn't vibing, but it's good to know, like, what's there. So just shining some light and having awareness. So, like, just like your audit on, where am I now? What is this? So even if it sucks and it's like really dark, let's look at it. Let's see what's there. And then maybe if you write down, like, what did you do? If you can remember, what did you do, yesterday? Write down, like, all the things that you did, and then you can do circles around things that were, that gave you energy, that were kind of good, that felt aligned, and then put a square around things that you were just burning time and that were kind of just empty. You're just kind of filling the void and kind of see. And a lot of times, yes, you'll have a lot of just I was just burning time here. I was just
watching Sports Center or whatever.
Yeah. Doom scrolling on your phone, or just
Right.
walking around the grocery store to see what's on sale, something like that. And, but then you'll say, okay, I did this one thing that actually, or maybe there won't be, maybe just like, oh, it's all just burning time. Then, it's good to know,
Right.
oh, I spent my whole day just doing nothing that was actually beneficial. And then you can add some stuff in there. So we're trying to see where we're at, because it's hard to make those changes.
So first step is really to try to see where we're at. Right?
Yeah. And then from there, then we can say, okay, well, I did some things. What more can I add in so I can have less of the frivolous burning time stuff, and then maybe more. Let's see if there's like a theme on some of the things that were good. Like maybe maybe you went for a walk and there was you saw a bird. There's an interesting thing as getting older that I'm meeting people. They're like, oh, did you hear that bird? And they're like, they have the bird app or whatever. That's whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is but yeah, there's something that, you might discover that you're like, okay, I did this one thing, but I just did that. So you might have heard a bird, liked it, but then that's it. And you didn't pay any more attention. Then the rest was just burning time. And then it's like, okay, well, let's look into this a little bit more. You really like this.
So do a little personal inventory of the previous day and see what things brought you energy, what things had a little uplift to them, which things made you feel worse, maybe when you were done with them.
Right. And also, one big thing, we talked about this a little earlier, but when I'm in my lowest moments, it always helps to, once again, make somebody else's day. Just be like, man, because I found, like, I can't always control how I'm feeling, but I'm like, man, I can absolutely make somebody else's day. And,
Yeah,
so
that's incredibly powerful. That's incredibly powerful. Anytime you can do something to put your focus on other people when you're feeling down, that definitely helps. I'm going to add one in here because I think it's really important. Like in the times when I was feeling overwhelmed with sadness in the last 6 months, to reach out to somebody, to let go of my ego, like to let go of like needing to seem like I have it all together, needing to seem like I have all the answers. And to reach out to somebody. And here's the thing, to trust yourself on who that reach out is, to not think, oh, well, they're not going to have time for me, or I'm going to look like a fool to them. And there were a handful of people, 3 or 4 that I could reach out to. And some of them, people that I don't see very often. I was maybe very good friends with 20 years ago or 25 years ago. Right. But if I am humble enough to be real, like you talked about doing the inventory, right? To be real with where I am, then reach out to somebody, whatever person is on your heart to reach out to. If you're feeling that low, reach out to them and just let them see you as you are, even if it's very embarrassing or, you feel a little bit of shame because of it or whatever the case is. That's the starting point of getting me to, come through this cycle. Like you said, there'll be other ones, right? But this cycle. So I want to add that to reach out to somebody, to don't be in isolation, right? There's I'm in 12-step recovery, and we talk about, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
Right. Yes.
Right. And so make sure if you're in that really deep and dark spot. I had a friend that I talked to at that time. He's like, well, just keep breathing, right? That's all you have to do.
Yes.
That's a win. Just keep breathing. Right.
Yes.
Or I had another one that I hadn't talked to in a long time, and very busy business person, big business they own. And they took an hour and a half and just talked to me and was really, acknowledging. And, so it's really important also, if you're in that dark spot, to really make sure you have that connection. And if you can be to a place where you do something for somebody else, great. And if you can be placed to an inventory, great. But those are a couple of things I would add to it as well.
Yes, that reminded me, thank you for bringing that up, because yes, I had to do that myself. I've reached out, but there's, I'd like your listeners to also know that there's, first I was trying to unpack some of this stuff, here in the house with the family. And then I was like, wait, and it wasn't landing. And I was like, wait, they're not necessarily, that's not their role.
That's right.
So like what you were saying is, okay, well, who can I actually reach out to? And it can be like, also for me, one of my friends that I've known since we were roommates in college, and then just like, hey man, do you have some time? And then and he knows me super well, so he knows like any phraseology or stuff. He's like, all right, yeah,
for sure.
I'll make coming.
Time.
He'll make time. And I've also been on the other side of that, where I was really tired. I'd worked super long, and I was like getting in bed, and then a friend texted and said, can you tell me everything's going to be okay? I was like, I'm on my way. And, I just got in the car and I just went over there because I was like, oh, they need me. This is, so.
And how did that feel when you got out of bed after a long day and went over there?
I was honored to be able to do it because, and I was like, because 30 seconds before I was like, I just need to go to sleep. Right, I need to, but as soon as I got that, I was like, I am going over there right now. And I was like, I don't care if I'm there all night. And I was there for almost all night, but I was like, I'm just going to go sit with them. I was just going to be there. And because for me, there's certain things and I think that a lot of times, people that know you, they know if this is like for me, I was like, I'm going there. So it wasn't like I'm going to call them.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, okay, I think this is a call, but there's other times where I was like, no, this is.
Right. But I think it's really important for people to hear that you were really honored and immediately energized and honored to be there. Yeah. Because that's one of the things we think, well, I don't want to bother somebody. I don't want to reach out to somebody. I don't want to bother them. But that to get that call is a really great honor. To be there for somebody else when they really need it is really a great honor. So that's what I would say. Nick, I really really appreciate this conversation. This is important stuff, and it's important work that you're doing. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you to hear more about your story or your reset button or the program that you're working on? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
All right. They can go to the website resettheman.com. And women can go there too, but it's just a catchy website, resettheman.com, and they can find me on LinkedIn also. And yeah, I'm available. Once again, if somebody needs to reach out to me, please reach out. If you don't have anyone else, or if you have other people, but you want to reach out to me, reach out. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. I have time.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Well, I really appreciate you having the courage, because that's what it is, that you having the courage to face what in recovery we call the horrible alone, right? You stopped the crazy busyness that you had. The focus on, the achievement worship that we have in this country primarily, and pretty much the whole Western world today.
Yes.
And have had the courage to stick with it and say, hey, I'm going to try to figure out what's next for me and help others do the same. And that's a beautiful thing. So I really appreciate your authenticity to that, your courage to stick with that journey, and you're being vulnerable and sharing it with our audience today, Nick. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for allowing me on the platform to share the story.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. I can't wait to hear what action you are taking. Connect with me on LinkedIn or our website, lifeintransition.online, and let me know. Let a friend know too. It could be a huge encouragement to them and keep you on the track. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and it would mean a lot to me if you left a review and shared this episode with a friend. If you want to learn more about me and what I do when I'm not podcasting, please visit me at artblanchford.com. Thank you for listening. Together, let's make the most of life in transition.